Hello, you should be able to hear me now. That should be it now. I forgot to do all the shite that fucking what's it called? OBS makes you do. I'm gonna turn up the lights in here as well. We've got some ambience. I've got fucking hue lights now. That's moved into a fancy flat. We've got hue lights, so I can turn them up now. How are we all doing? Um, yeah, there it is. I'd forgotten to do the bullshit stuff that OBS demands that you do every time you fucking sign on to it or whatever. You know, nonsense. I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world. Don't know if that comes across. But here we are. Some the lights a bit. Is it? Can we go brighter? What sort of lights are we feeling? Um, oh yeah, I can turn things up a bit. Is this better? Last time I was on, it was a bit too. I noticed it was a bit too, like it crackled out. It was too high. Um, if this is any better, let me know. What different lights have we got? Ooh, that's a menacing aura. What's this one like? Not great. This one. Ah, well better. Brilliant. Okay, cool, amazing. I've got like an outboard mic and everything that does shit. What about Spring Blossom? What sort of vibe is that? Um, that's quite nice. That's kind of chill. We like that. Let's stick with that for now, and we'll see how we're feeling. Um, yeah. So plan for today's stream. We're just gonna chill out for a bit. I've got one video. I might not watch the whole of it because it's like an hour long, and you know, I can't be bothered doing that. We're gonna like in Spring Blossom. Yeah, Spring Blossom is good. Um, yeah. So plan for today's stream is I've only got like this one video that I'm doing a little bit of watching. It's that Novara Media one on on neoliberalism being over, and we all know how I feel about that. So I'm taking up my sword once more, and fighting the good fight against that. Um, oh, the English water. We will get to the English water. Actually, no. Let's talk about the English water now. The English water fucking sucks. It's the worst. Who decided this is how we should live? How anyone should live? It's inhuman. It's the most fucking Scotnat I will ever become because of the fucking English water. And I don't know how much this is to do with it, but it is like privatized water, and fuck privatized water. Why would you privatize water? Um, so part of it is to do. I mean, maybe it's to do with the privatized water. It fucking sucks anyway. I hate it. It's like drinking a swimming pool. Not a fan. I should have maybe put on contact lenses before streaming because I look like an anime character who's just about to do something terrible. Like I look like an anime villain right now. Sorry, I got distracted there. So I had a bit of a cold getting back from the World Transformed last week. Not COVID, just a cold. Um, is that a thing that we're gonna have to keep saying to everyone from now on? Not COVID, just a cold. And I'm just on the tail end of it just now. Um, so I've got a little bit of coughiness still going on. Um, yeah, fuck the fucking goddamn English water. I hate it. It's my most Scotnat opinion in the world. Fucking privatised, chlorinated swimming pool water. No wonder everyone down here is so angry. That's not true. Everyone down here isn't angry. I'm just bitter because of all the hard water. Yeah, the water in Brighton was just as bad. It was just horrible. It is just like drinking out of a swimming pool. Um, so yes, plan for today before after we're done talking about the water is to yeah, I've got that weird scum on my tea right now. we're gonna watch this little video for a little bit, uh, um, and we will and talk about it, and anything else that comes up, anything anyone wants to talk about, just chill out, just vibe for a bit. And this is the first sort of content produced from the new flat in London, which is nice. I've got my new filming setup almost ready over there, trying to make it a bit less, a bit less grim and pale by adding some nice pictures up there. Getting some greenery around, got marks and a little duck on my desk. Things are looking up. So welcome, I guess, to the new flat. Do you like my bed covers? I got these bed covers, the like woodland animals, because I like woodland animals. I think they're nice. Is Dutch tap water particularly good? Good for the Dutch, I guess. Yeah, it is a fancier flat than I'm used to. I'm living with a friend who gave me a very good deal on this flat. Ren, I'm not sure where you can get those marks, but I got it from, it was a present, so so I don't know, I'm afraid. Oh, the bed covers, yeah. All right. Shall we just get into it? Let's just get into it for a few minutes. We're not going to watch the whole of this video because it's an hour long, and I watched it already. Because even when I'm streaming, I like to do a bit of preparation so I know what I'm talking about. There's enough shooting from the hip out there, for the fucking world. So yeah, this is a Novara Media video, about the end of neoliberalism, and we'll watch. I think they start getting weird later on, talking about nationalism. Let's not bother getting into that for now. But I think like the first 20 minutes they talk about neoliberalism being dead, and I think that's useful to go over it. Let me Okay, there we go again. Sorry, yeah. Well, you didn't miss much. I was just complaining to myself about fucking trying to get technical difficulties sorted, which I guess is ironic. Sorry about that. I was in a rush. I don't know why I was in a rush. I wasn't even doing that much today. I was just in a rush to get sorted for a stream, and I forgot to set up all these fucking things. So here we go. Hi, Sarah Moon's cat. Welcome to the stream. Right. Let me know if you can hear this audio, because I'm not sure if we fucked this up. I might have. I might not have. We'll see.
A series of shocks, starting with the 2008 financial crash, the emergence of right-wing populists taking power, the rise of China, and most recently, the COVID pandemic, all of which mark the end of an era of political and economic orthodoxy.
Can we hear the video? Is the video a video playing for everyone? Waiting to catch up with chat. Brilliant. Look at this. This is technical wizardry. Fucking just call me Steve Jobs, or because I can do this. Oh, don't worry. I was a wee bit late because I was making a cup of tea as well. Don't worry about it. We're not even barely started. You've missed me being a bit muted and then showing people my new room. Not missed much. We're about to watch this video, and it's already a little bit annoyed me by the invocation of populism. There is inherently oppositional to neoliberalism, like we talked about in the first authoritarian neoliberalism video and the recent one on the death of neoliberalism. Populism, or Trumpism as it has existed, and Brexit were not in any way antithetical to neoliberalism. Hello, Mithril. Welcome to the stream. We're doing a classic John bit and talking about how someone's annoyed me with a bad neoliberalism take. This time it's Nirvana Media. Yeah, the idea that populism as it existed through Trump and Brexit is antithetical to neoliberalism is something that is... I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why... I'm not really sure why it's a thing. It was very clear from Trump's administration that it was deeply neoliberal, and the entire construction of Brexit about freeing up markets beyond the EU and about stopping non-white... hey Mandy, welcome to the stream. Thanks for joining us. How are you? You good? I liked your thread the other day about how about saying nice things to everyone. That was lovely. Yeah. So already that's annoyed me, the fucking populism take. But we'll move on a bit from there.
What precisely has changed, and what are the rules and opportunities of the game in 2021? Joining me to discuss that today is Paolo Giabaudo, a sociologist and author of a new book out with Verso Books titled The Great Recoil. Paolo, welcome to Downstream.
Hi, Aaron. Hi, everyone.
It's great to have you down the line talking about these issues. We're talking, I think it's important to say this, before Labour Party conference. This will be coming after Labour Party conference.
Say that the point about populism is an interesting one, because when neoliberalism was first being instituted in the UK, Thatcherism was specifically described by by sections of the left as being populist, particularly Stuart Hall, that sort of milieu, and the reason was because Thatcher was appealing to particular strands, particular sections of the bourgeois class, and they were framing it as populism, which is a very different way to how people have been talking about populism in regards to Trump, or in regards to like various other things. But neoliberalism from its inception, at least like in its real world conception, has often been described as populist. Like, even, like, it's just one of those things that's people throw around these terms as if they mean something without explaining why they mean something. This video isn't. This video is anti-capitalist. I would say. It's hard to say how much Navarra is meaningfully anti-capitalist these days. Not trying to throw shade or start beef, but you know they're becoming part of the media system here. The video is taking the position that neoliberalism is dead, or it's on its way out, or whatever. And Bastani, the host, is talking to a political sociologist about it, and I have some issues about it. So that's the position that we're going for.
So if anything is wrong, you know why. The discussions we're having, this book in particular, I think is really salient to so many conversations we're going to hear from mainstream politics over the next couple of years. So I'm really happy we could discuss it. You start with the book saying that neoliberalism is dead. Obviously, we've heard that multiple times before. Why, in your opinion, in the Great Recoil, is neoliberalism incapable of carrying on as before? And what's the role of COVID-19 in that?
The key thing in the book is that neoliberalism is understood not just as an ideology, but as a bipartisan consensus that defined a political era, right? The era starting in the 80s.
See, this is already weird to me. The idea that it is a bipartisan consensus, because we're talking about a system of an ideology which has more than just like ideological effects. It's more than just consensus. It's a material. Has material components to itself as well. And those material components aren't just are like neatly described often as things like privatization or small state and things like that. But it also includes the material processes of creating a neoliberal subject, which in my view is a process of primitive accumulation. So reducing it to this narrow understanding, which is narrow in a few ways that we'll get to later on, but it reduces it to this sort of rhetorical device almost, or like just, it is pure ideology that they're talking about in this case, even though he's saying it's not ideological, and that's interesting to me. And we'll come back a few times because this guy talks a lot about polls, about polling numbers, and the evidence for neoliberalism's death. But what this misses out is, of course, like the structural and institutional embeddedness of neoliberalism on the one hand, that we talk about in like the way that authoritarian neoliberalism exists. People like Ian Brough and Bob Jessup and myself talk about quite a lot. The changing of institutions, the things like creating constitutional barriers to spending in Brazil, or the creation of the office, the Office for Budget Responsibility in the UK, or the debt ceiling in the US, all these things being real structural changes to the state because of neoliberalism, and fundamentally neoliberal. So it's not, this idea of reducing it to party consensus is odd to me. I've heard a similar thing me throw before. What else was I going to say there? I was going to say something else. Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. It's also interesting if two-party consensus on neoliberal forms of governance. Oh, are we still going? Sorry, are we still live? My playback, it says I've got a playback error on my side. Can people still see and hear me? Okay, alright, sound. We'll we'll carry on and hope it stays up. Yep, cool. Yeah, so the idea of it being a party consensus, I mean, the consensus is still there. Like, in the UK, both Tories and Labour are still fundamentally committed to it. the US still fundamentally committed to it. And and things like the European Union still fundamentally committed to it, and it's just this idea that being just a bipartisan consensus is odd. I don't know what it is. Just my YouTube studio is saying an error occurred with the playback, so it might just be my playback on the stream. I don't know what's going on. We'll carry on, and if things fuck up, we'll go from there.
Obviously with Thatcher and Reagan, but then progressively permeating also the center left, obviously Clinton, Blair, Schroeder, and so on and so forth. And there is a tendency in history where you have these periods of 40, 50 years where a certain consensus is dominant that then inevitably kind of fade away and open the space for a new consensus to emerge. I mean, before neoliberalism, we had social democracy, obviously, right, in the post-war period, the so-called Trente Glorieuses, the period of most intense and prosperous expansion of capitalism. And then the neoliberal era, I mean, the very talking about the neoliberal era implies that at some point that era was going to end. And indeed, we've heard about the end of neoliberalism in the aftermath of 2008, then more recently Stiglitz, and now many people in a way are joining these theses. I mean, Adam Tooze, for example, in his last book. And I think in 2021, there's more...
On that Adam Tooze book as well, recently I read an extract, or he'd written like an article in The Guardian. It was quite... what's the guy's name? One second. The guest is called Paolo Garbaldo. He's an Italian Marxist, I think. Just this description, this description of the Great Recoil, examining how ideas of protection, control, and state intervention are replacing the previous orthodoxy of free market capitalism, specifically designed to annoy me. That's a hey Sinan, how's it going? That's a little fucking blurb that's specifically designed to annoy me. And like, regarding that blurb, excuse me, it's like that blurb itself is falling into neoliberal ideas about separation of the state and the economic, while purporting to subordinate one to the other. I mean, if you're making an argument about how enjoy your thing in half an hour. If you're making an argument about how neoliberalism is about permeated ideology throughout the system, and then you describe your book in ways which kind of uphold neoliberal assumptions about the state and the economy, and then argue that that period is over, you've kind of fucked yourself there. You've fucked yourself a little bit. Maybe that's a bit of a cheap shot. But what was I saying before Sinan came in and distracted me? What was I talking about? Aye, Jam Life. Jam Life, that's a good name. The Life of Jam. We'll keep watching.
Reason to say that neoliberalism is fading because we have been through the 2010s, which have been a period of prolonged economic stagnation, where the recipes of neoliberal economists have evidently failed, and has been a period of populist insurgencies, right, of the most different kind. I mean, protest movements, Gilets jaunes, Occupy, contesting neoliberalism from the streets, new left populist candidates and parties, obviously Corbyn, Sanders, and then the populist right. And what unites all these phenomena was criticism of different aspects of neoliberalism. I mean, I think that many opinion polls that point to a change in attitudes among citizens highlight that the common sense of neoliberalism, namely this idea that the market is good, the state is bad, is now really going away from the center. I mean, you have...
So, thanks for subscribing, Jam Life. There's a few things here to deal with. What's up? What's therapy? When people talk about your name, do you need them to say the therapy? I hope I reach 10k soon. I'm gonna get drunk on stream when I reach 10k, so tell your friends if you want to see messy JD on stream. There's a few things on this point that on this wee section that I wanted to talk about. The first being the idea of populism as inherently oppositionary to neoliberalism, and again, like the idea of Trumpism at all being oh, so now I'm talking messy. I'm not talking drunk. I'm talking messy. Like, come on, get a grip. The idea of things like Trump and of Brexit as being anti-neoliberal, as posing in opposition to neoliberal values, is very strange to me, because the entire even rhetorically, the entire Trump campaign was situated around these ideas of personal responsibility and of like pulling you up by your bootstraps. There's that clip of Trump's campaign director, or whatever she was his son's partner or wife or something, giving that mad speech where she's like shouting at the camera, saying, "Do you believe in America? Do you believe in patriotism? Do you believe in personal responsibility?" So the idea that neoliberal values are in any way oppositional or are being posed in opposition to right-wing populism, specifically right-wing populism as like whatever as a shorthand for Trumpism or Brexit, is a bizarre contestation. I don't know how you can really make that argument with fully understanding what neoliberalism is. Someone was saying earlier, John's going to get cancelled for what he says in the 10k stream. You won't cancel me for stuff I say getting drunk, because I am consistent with my beliefs even when I'm fucking drunk. You can fucking come at me. Come at me and we'll see what happens. I'll be drinking whiskey and firing off the fucking most salient points you've ever heard. And maybe doing a wee dance in between. Hey nerd teacher. I don't know if it's messier than a Slovak messy. I don't know about that. You can judge by yourself. I will say I have a lot of stamina, as people who saw me at the World Transformed last week can attest. I have a lot of stamina when I'm drunk. I can dance for hours and hours and hours and just not stop. Somebody asked, I have a theory JD becomes a staunch capitalist, that's right, when he gets drunk. Like fucking Jekyll and Hyde. That would be something else. Just constantly fighting the fucking Thatcherite inside. Ugh. I'm a little confused where they draw the line, so what constitutes neoliberalism? Yeah, they don't really... Oh, Sinan, that day. I was up for 20... when did I go to sleep? When did I get to sleep that day? Maybe I was up for 30 hours that day, and the fucking coach home from Brighton. That was bad. That was a bad day. That was a bad day, and that was the day that my cold hit as well. So I thought I'll just go to sleep. Woke up the next day fucking just destroyed, like the mix of a 5-day hangover and not sleeping, and I've hurt my knees from dancing too hard. I don't know how that happened. Well, I do know how that happened. I shuffled down quite a lot. I was a mess. I was a mess for a few days after that. Yeah, so in this video, someone was saying they're not sure where they draw the line, what constitutes neoliberalism in this video. They don't really explain it. There's a presumed idea, and this is consistent with what Adam Tooze was saying in his book. There's a presumed idea about neoliberalism being, at least rhetorically, and therefore values-wise as well, I don't know, about small state, free market enterprise. And, that's not, as anyone who follows the channel can hopefully say, that's not what constitutes neoliberalism. The state has always been strong in theory and in practice. Adam Tooze makes this mistake as well when he's talking about it. And he talks about how while in theory there's a small neoliberal state, in practice it's been quite strong, and that creates an artificial dividing line between theory and practice of neoliberalism, which just is not there in the theory. You know, the ordoliberal state has always been very strong. The neoliberal state has always been a strong, sharp tool. It's been separated from democratic control quite a lot, which, you know, when you think about Trump's populism as a businessman, not a like, that was central to his idea, and that is a fundamentally neoliberal ideal, to put a businessman, an idea like a technocrat in charge of the economy, not a politician who's connected to like democracy. So there's that sort of weird conception there. Everyone's trip back from Brighton was difficult. Yeah, it was a challenging day, I think, that for everyone. Jamlife, recently watched your video on patriotism. What do you think of the absorption of the NHS into British identity? Do you think it helped protect it from the Conservative movement in the 80s and 90s? Well, I think that the absorption of the NHS into patriotism has probably overall bolstered ideas of using the NHS and using doctors as part of the overall bordering force. They use the NHS and using it to exclude people who've not paid into the system. I think that's been the main effect of using patriotism to support the NHS. This is a point that they talk about way later on in the video, which we're probably not going to get into because we're 3 minutes in and I've been streaming for 40, so we're not going to get through all that much of this video, if I'm honest. Just using it as a kicking off point to chat. But yeah, they make the point later on in this video about using patriotism to defend institutions like that, and it's just a bizarre. I just think it's totally wrong. I don't think it's useful at all. Yeah, Mr. X saying small government in the US has always been a deception. Hey, all Tories are scum. I mean, it's always been a deception for neoliberalism as well, and it's not even not always been the primary deception of neoliberalism. Sometimes they've made that arguments about the role of the state as well, like he talks about there, the progressive neoliberalism of Blair and Clinton, of Obama. The sort of progressive neoliberalism has always situated an important role of the state rhetorically, never mind in actuality. Mr. X, I'm an American, so my view on patriotism is very specific to our version of jingoistic brainwashing. Yeah, I mean, patriotisms will manifest differently. Being American, you have the specific settler colonial aspect to your patriotism as well, which is slightly different manifestation from the British imperial nostalgia and the Scottish version of just imperial denial, where they'll talk about imperialism being, the SNP or whatever, nationalists will talk about imperialism being bad, but often distance Scottish responsibility from it, which is also bad. Not great. Scotland, not great. You can come at me, nationalists, for that one. You don't need to clip me saying all Tories are scum. I can say that a fair amount. Speak to all the UK 50-year-olds that fought in World War II. Exactly, yeah. Alter Steel, the driving back during the fuel crisis, that must have been horrible. I don't envy that. Remember when you called the SNP nationalists and someone went nuts? I don't know. Do I remember that specific time that I called the SNP something and someone went nuts? What was their contention, that they weren't nationalists, they were patriots or some shit? God, yeah, that was wild. Gary Grennan just joined. I ruptured my Achilles on Monday. Oof, got a video conference, an appointment, and sorted with a few hours. Walked out, not worry how that accident has set myself back in family for years. That sounds shit, man. I'm sorry to hear that. Oh yeah, was that in like a Goat and a Goblin stream? I think it was. Um, yeah, I think that was when I was on with Sam and James of Chill Goblin and We're in Hell. I was talking about the SNP. I think I was drunk then. And I think I talked about the Scottish Nationalist. Yeah, because I said Scottish Nationalist Party, and they were like, "Oh, it's a Scottish National Party." It's like, "Oh, fuck off!" Like, I'd drunk about like fucking half a bottle of whiskey at that point. Like, go away. That person was really. Oh, Seal. Oh, sorry, Alta. That's my mistake. Um, yeah, that was fucking that was very funny. The amount of SNP nationalists that have gotten mad at me is significant, and it's funny every time. Every time it's funny. Do I think John Oliver is bad? I think John Oliver is about as good as you can be while being on HBO. I don't watch the show anymore. I used to watch it quite a lot. I don't have time to watch. Like I'm even losing time to watch other YouTubers and my friends these days, which is annoying. Scott Nats don't get mad at you, but a lot of soft left types do. I mean, we've all got our crosses to bear. I don't really get the soft left getting mad at me. It's mainly. I don't get all that many people being mad at me either. I get debate bros being mad at me. The next video is going to make some people mad at me as well, but Scott Nats get mad at me because a lot of the time because of that video on Scottish imperialism, which is quite funny. Oh really? What's my views on Scottish independence? Oh, we're really getting into it here. I don't care at this point, frankly. I'm neither. It's not even like I'm for or against. I just don't care, because like at this point, I think it's it's very clearly manifestation of bourgeois politics. Like I think it's the most clear manifestation of that we've got right now, where it's campaigning to swap one distant neoliberal state for another. It's got all the problems with, racialisation. Scottish politics isn't much different from English politics. Political attitudes aren't much different. We've basically had New Labour in charge for SNP are essentially New Labour, just with nationalism. Yeah, I just don't care. Frankly, either way, it could happen. It could not. The best thing I can say about Scottish independence is it would be funny to see the British Isles collapse. That would be funny. Aside from that, I don't think anything would substantially change. That's basically my opinions on it. If it happens, fine. If it doesn't, whatever. Either way, it's not going to cause a huge amount of difference to people's lives. It would be very funny. That is the thing. I mean, I'd be more interested. I think it'd be funnier if there was Irish reunification, which drove that collapse of the UK. I think that would be better and funnier. Yeah, Ren's right. The middle class liberals really love to pretend that independent Scotland would be great. They all they put up this image of this idealized image of a Nordic state, which in itself is at this point a neoliberal state as well, and they still project this image as if it's as if it would solve all of our problems, and it wouldn't. I think the Scottish left needs to be much more aware of the limitations of independence, and at this point the Scottish left is so disorganised that there is little beyond independence that binds them, and that is an issue. There's too much to do to really get caught up into it. Maybe. Again, I just don't. It's not even something I just don't really care about it. That's my main sort of issue. So I missed some stuff in chat. I'm just sorry if I missed your comment. I'm not scrolling up at this point. We're starting to get to the point of chats where I can just chat with folk, and it's nice. I like being able to chat with you guys. That's me establishing a parasocial relationship, by the way. And it's good, this parasocial relationship. Not even bad. This is the good one. Um, the mania over the seaboard or naturally realigning Northern Irish economy with the Republic has been delicious. Yeah, it's been very funny. It's going to drive people wild. I'm very excited about it. I don't think it would be easier to get a socialist into power in an independent Scotland. I don't think that's the case. I mean, and I also don't think. I mean, my position on electoralism at this point is that I don't think it's a particularly useful means of achieving any sort of proper any socialism. So, a socialist into power through the bourgeois, systems of governance, we're going to end up at best a social democratic economy, which is not what we need at this point. Yeah, I mean, I just don't think it's the case. Again, and Scottish people, the Scottish left, are horribly unaware and horribly underprepared by the fact that Scottish social attitudes, especially in regard to immigration, are basically the same as English ones. Basically the same. There's not really much difference at all. So whatever. Living rent are good. That's right. Yeah, living rent are good. There's good good community programs in Scotland, community organisations that do good work on the ground. Mainly mandate parasocial relationships. I will genuinely stand by the position that parasocial relationships aren't in themselves bad. There's this idea that's spread a lot around that parasocial relationships are inherently bad. I don't think that's necessarily the case. Parasocial relationships have always existed. Cool. Yeah. I mean, again, like a Scottish socialist gaining power, I just don't think it's whether that thing, whatever gains power, is socialist in any meaningful sense. I would contest. I think the structures of power are, still similar. Parasocial. I mean, like, things get weird when money gets involved and stuff for parasocial relationships. I had a really nice time meeting lots of people who were very kind about my videos at the World Transform. I don't mind being perceived when I'm not on stream. It was very nice to have people go, "Oh, you John?" And I was like, "Yeah," and they were going, "I like your videos," and me being like, "Cheers, I like that. It was nice." Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice thing to hear. Shall we move on with the video?
Still neoliberals around, but they're becoming more radicalized, precisely as befits a phase where their views, their beliefs are not common sense anymore, but become partisan once again.
Yeah, that's so true. The point about the role of the state in particular, and we'll return to that. And of course, COVID-19 really pressed home, actually, just how fond many people are of the state to solve big problems. So if I'm understanding what you just said correctly, Paolo, because of course, many of our listeners, our viewers have heard this so many times. They've heard the words neoliberalism is over, whether it was 2008 with the crisis, whether it was the IMF saying something, whether it was quantitative easing going on for 10 years, this is clearly not how optimal markets function, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. What you're saying is the economic orthodoxy has been falling apart, and hey, it may carry on for a bit longer, but the political aspect of how states seek to coordinate things, the consensus among politicians and the media, that has definitively gone. So there are two separate parts of the sort of question.
Again, this is an interesting dichotomy which is being placed in, which itself plays into neoliberal ideas about the separation of the economic and the political, which is very funny to me for a thing about how neoliberalism has ended. The political consensus for neoliberalism hasn't ended. I mean, they're going to go on to this later on, but we might as well get into it now. So one of the big things that people are pointing to recently regarding the end of neoliberalism and the end of the political consensus of neoliberalism is Biden's big infrastructure plan, big increased state spending. What's interesting in this video is that they will talk about an increased spending happening under Blair and under Clinton, but most of that spending going to private hands, being funneled through private areas. But then in the discussion of Biden, that suddenly disappears. But you look at Biden's infrastructure plan, which I did earlier today, public-private partnerships are fundamental to it. They're central to it. Only roads in the infrastructure bill, please and thank you. Yes. The public-private partnerships, which are something that was fundamental to New Labour, which New Labour, as a neoliberal, party at the time, fucking lived on. That's how they funneled all that public money into private hands. The Biden's bill specifically mandates that states and municipalities direct funding, if they can, to public-private partnerships, because there is not any... they didn't take off in the same way in the US as they did in the UK. And this has got business leaders getting on side with the big spending bill, because it gives them the opportunity to funnel money into private hands. And it's interesting that there's an awareness of this with New Labour, but not with Biden, which is an interesting thing to see. I'm not sure why, sort of intellectually, you would justify that, how you'd justify that. But there seems to be this difference in how they're sort of perceived. And this sort of state action, as we talked about in the last video, using the state to funnel money and to support the free market system, like in the way that the EU is creating a polity, creating a supra-state body to support an idealised vision of the free market. That's classic neoliberalism. So there are ways in which the Biden administration has acted counter to neoliberal norms, and I'm not sure how far gone this is, but I do remember seeing that he wanted to remove requirement from work to receiving benefits. I'm not sure if that's gone through anywhere, if that's part of any policy program, or if it's just a rhetoric that he's deployed in particular ways. But in terms of like the infrastructure stuff, it's been funneled through PPP in ways that are fundamentally neoliberal. And I think what this points to is the inability of a lot of people to understand the ways that neoliberalism exists and is changing, becoming more aggressive in certain ways, interacting with its own inherent racialism, and producing the sort of neoliberal fascism that we're seeing. And I think this is the main problem. Like, for me, there's two levels why these end of neoliberalism arguments are important. One, they annoy me, and that is important. Two, because if we start ignoring, if we imply a firm break with neoliberalism, we miss both the institutional ways in which this authoritarianism is generated and the sort of the conditions out of which, the logics out of which a new sort of neoliberal fascism or neoliberal authoritarianism, I know some people will quibble over certain bits there, will appear. And I think that's like bad. I think that's missing a lot of things. What's chat saying? Yeah, hopeless politically, I get that. The environmental sector is a huge PPP venture, not the only one, but that's the one I spent way too much time with. Yes, I think similar things are happening with the EU in regards to their industrial environmental plans. They're planning to invest huge amounts of money into private and I think public-private ventures to secure energy markets for the EU. secure. I think the words being used are secure and deepen the single market in relation to energy. Again, another thing that is very, very end of neoliberalism. What's going on? The exogenous shocks coming will give us a better chance, or we're all dead. Oh Jesus! Nice to have you here, Mithril. We've already descended into the grim hours apparently in chat. This was the chill zone, but it's okay, chat. We're all here for the grim stuff too. Thanks for joining us, Mithril. EU gave big funds to gas extraction too as a green alternative to oil. Yes, that's I've seen that happen quite a lot. That happened in the UK as well. No, it was worse in the UK. One thing that happened here was the government gave huge subsidies to Shell and BP for finding for investing in renewable energy, and they spent the money on searching for new deep sea oil fields, which seems to be, to me at least, as an unscientific mind, the exact fucking opposite of what we were wanting. Nice to have you here, Sinan. I will catch you, everyone. I'll be on Sinan's stream on Saturday at 6 p.m. British PST, GMT, whatever, British time, playing a game called Life in a YouTuber, which will be very fun. Yes. 6 p.m. UK time. We'll be there, and we'll be talking about how the life of the YouTuber, which is really glamorous. See you later, nerd teacher as well. So join us for that. Cool. Yeah, we're in the chill zone. Let's carry on. I don't have any links on me at the person. It's in Renfrewshire. It was operated by G4S. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It was immigrant detainment centre in. Oh, you're staying here now, teacher. Oh, cool. It was an immigrant detention centre in Renfrewshire, run by G4S, and it's got various different scandals attached to it, using slave labour, terrible conditions for the. I don't even think it's immigration detention centre. I think it might be a refugee place. One or the other. I can't remember. I can't remember the name of it. And their teacher, the expand and deepen or secure and deepen the free market stuff is fucking gross, especially when it's combined with all the stuff that the EU is talking about in regards to threats of China. That's bad.
Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. I mean, there's obviously two levels, right? I mean, there is a symbolic level or discursive level to politics. I mean, the slogans that are used, the catchwords that are used, the kind of discourse politicians are using. In that regard, we can say that neoliberals were clearly against the state. I mean, rolling back the state, Reagan, Thatcher, and so on and so forth.
Again, this is just not true. This is just simply not true in all cases. We've had the progressive neoliberals just simply weren't like this. They had elements of it in them, but they weren't like against the state in that sense. It's just simply not true. Not. I don't know what else to say about that. It's just simply not true.
And policy-wise, they also, I mean, while many people say no, but it's not true that neoliberalism was against the state. In fact, if you look at public spending as a percentage of GDP, clearly Margaret Thatcher reduced state spending as a percentage of GDP. Ronald Reagan, despite the Star Wars, right, and the Cold War with Russia, also reduced state spending in significant areas. I mean, in education, in health, in social welfare. And then you have another breed of neoliberalism, which is the sort of third way breed of neoliberalism. And Tony Blair increased state spending, but mostly through private and public partnership, through ways that, instead of emboldening the state, were designed to support the city, to support.
So this is sort of getting to, I think, the crux of the issue. So first of all, the idea that state spending is a metric for strength and size of the state functions is again very neoliberal framing for the idea of this sort of like distinction between the state and the economy. The state under Thatcherism was not small or weak, not by any means. They may have reduced spending, but as I talked about in the video on primitive accumulation and class war and Thatcherism, the state there was hugely strong. The police, they created the first sort of national unified police force to attack unions. The state lent on courts to produce particular hard sentences for unions. Oh, here he is, Lucas Muckus Puckus, coming in to fucking troll, is it? There they are. Trolling in the chat. I hate to see it. Yeah, so the idea of like state spending being smaller state spending, reduced state spending, meaning a small or no role for the state is a very strange thing to say. And then to go on, like we were saying earlier, going on and saying public spending increased, but that spending was funneled through PFIs and public-private partnerships. Again, much like it's being done now. And even like that's what happened during the pandemic. You look at the UK's pandemic response. Test and trace went straight to private companies. That didn't embold didn't create more fucking state support or public institutions in that sense. There was also the way in which the furlough scheme worked, which funneled money straight to employers to keep them afloat rather than to people or whatever. You know, the idea that those things indicate an end of neoliberalism, but New Labourism doesn't seems mismatched in my view. It again seems like a strange thing to say. Since I have your ear, I really want some leftists to examine what if all this. He's turning pretty shit. I don't know who that is, I'm afraid. Don't know who this person is. No, yeah, sorry, don't know who that is. Moving on.
Finance, while at the same time demolishing many aspects of the welfare state. I mean, that is also what Clinton did. Actually, Clinton did more to destroy the US welfare state than even Reagan did. Right? Now, it's important to distinguish neoliberalism and capitalism. Right? I mean, I think that now, having been immersed, being Blair children or Blair babies, right? I mean, many of the older people like listening, right? In a sense, people who have been brought up through neoliberalism, we have come to equate neoliberalism and capitalism as if they were the same things.
Oh, Jamlife, that sounds like no good to me. That sounds no good. That sounds like no good to me. I don't want to be involved in anything to do with this person. I would like to stop learning about who they are, and never think about them again. They sound bad and not good. This point on separating capitalism and neoliberalism, within the context of the argument that's being made here, it seems a bit shallow. Because the idea of neoliberalism hasn't been properly understood. So that's So separating it from capitalism, to what extent are you separating it from capitalism? What are you trying to say? On what realm does it operate? What is it, like, in your view? Capitalism is, of course, like, separate from neoliberalism. We know that social democracy existed, that classical liberalism existed, that fucking fascism exists. We know all these various things. Who's the guy that Bastani is talking to? An Italian, I think, Marxist, political sociologist who's just released a book called The Great Recoil, which, again, in a blurb that is specifically designed to annoy me, says, examining how ideas of protection, control and state intervention are replacing the previous orthodoxy of free market capitalism. That's his new book. By the way, walked past Bastani when I was in Brighton. Very short man. Very, very short. Not that there's anything bad about being short, just an observation. Very short man. Nerd teacher, I would say he's a Marxist. His arguments are clearly coming from like a Gramscian perspective. I don't want to admonish him on that. Some of the stuff he says later on about patriotism and stuff is just, horseshit. I don't know what that's bad. And they talk a lot about the state and globalization and stuff being, and various weird takes about that. I'd say rather than not in quotes Marxist, but capital M Marxist for sure. Government spend money as socialism, though, that's right. Separate neoliberalism from capitalism as an economic institution, absolutely, yes. Separate from capitalism as a social system, though. Thanks. I did meet some other short people who are short on ideas and stature when I was in Brighton. Look, as you very well know. It's funny how short a lot of the people in media, like in the left media sphere, are. We were down there, and I think we created a conspiracy theory, because every time we met one, they were like very short people. I think this is what's happening. I think the short kings are keeping us down. There's a conspiracy of short kings. That's what's happening. Where was it? The separate. So, when we're talking about like, I'm speaking with Italian communists. I understand. What was I going to say? Yeah, the separation of neoliberalism from capitalism. I mean, it's an ideology and system of organising things within capitalism, right? There is no separating it from capitalism, really. You can distinguish it from different phases or different ideologies within capitalism, obviously. Obviously, it's very different from social democracy. Obviously, it's quite different from classical liberalism. And it's somewhat different from fascism, but we're seeing ways in which it's, converging in particular ways with fascism and in its particular ways. I don't think it's a coincidence that one of the former presidents of the Montpellier Society was a literal Nazi, like member of the Nazi Party, full on actual Nazi. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think there's some convergence there. But clearly, it's clearly a different period that has particular logics behind it and works in particular ways. The way that it subjectifies people, the sort of particular primitive accumulation regime that it's establishing, the particular ways in which the state is ordered, and the logics of how it's ordered, right? These distinguish it from other sort of periods. Ugh. What socialist YouTubers do you watch, if any? Who have I been watching recently? I watched Professor Flower's video recently on the latest shit, because it's covering a similar sort of thing as my next video, and she's good. Who else? The classics. I like a philosophy tube video. I like Mia Mulder. Ponderful, big fan of Ponderful's work. Mainly Mandy, great stuff. I don't watch as much of my friend's stuff as I used to be able to. I'm just too busy, which is annoying. Yeah, just off the top of my head, those are some good people. I liked Ivy Online, but she's not put anything out in a while. Her work was really good when she was doing like the first few videos she did. Who else? Marina Dove, they're good. I saw their video on their new video, which I'm doing a voice for, reading a poem for. They put, I don't know, I don't think it's out yet. I think it's coming out soon. That's really good. Chill Goblin and We're in Hell, very good as well. Chill Goblin's video on colonialism was really good. Which was born out of a lot of conversations that we'd had about colonization in our reading group that we're in, because we just read Wretched of the Earth, which was good. There's just too many people to watch, frankly, which is nice. It's nice that there's so many folk to choose from, but Pinko Punko as well. Pinko Punko, great stuff. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, there's too many folk. Carr, very good. Ronan Youngblood is good as well. There's so many people. I could just keep going forever with all of the folk who are in our various group chats and going in and talking, like Harker the Storyteller, very good. All these folk. It's nice that there's a lot of us now. I like Thought Slime as well. I've not managed to watch a Thought Slime video in quite a while, just because, again, I'm just too busy doing too much. Someone said something earlier that I wanted to talk about. Am I wrong if in short describe neoliberalism as the argument you need to deploy in order to save the free market from the will of the people? I don't think you're wrong. There is a central part of neoliberalism which is about distancing control of the economic from the democratic, from the people, which justifies a lot of technocratic control of various institutions, which justifies things like Trump being a businessman, being an embodiment of the economic, in control of the economic, and I to be honest, I think someone like Trump really embodied neoliberalism in a way that few others do. As a person, he's like fucking this misogynistic, racist, West-focused, like American first fucking businessman oaf. Really, like I really do think he was perhaps most just exemplified neoliberalism incredibly well. I think so. I think that the issue. I know. See, you highlight you put quotes around free there, because it's sort of like the idealized version of the free market being supported by the state against control of the people. So I don't think you're wrong. It might be a bit simplistic, but it's, I think there's definitely something in what you're saying. What was Lennox? Baumbach saying? Neoliberalism is, broadly speaking, a mode of and ideology of the capitalist political economy that's been born out of almost total defeat of labour power during the 70s and 80s. I mean, yeah, I basically agree with that. Liberal Cook, yeah, Liberal Cook is great. I've not listened to the Surviving Society pod yet. I'll maybe listen to that tonight, or maybe I'm going into uni tomorrow, so maybe I'll listen to that on the train. I've not listened to it yet, but I went to Kieran's talk on decolonisation, and we talked to Kieran a lot. Hey Alice, nice to see you. Yeah, I'll maybe listen to that tomorrow on my way in. Kieran's fucking great though. And no one's allowed to. Oh, Lucas, you're not allowed to tell Kieran that I said he's great. Okay? Not allowed to say that. Not allowed to tell him. He is though, and he's way too smart, and it's annoying. How are you doing, Alice? Nice to have you here. We were talking. We're sort of darting between talking about this video on you fucker. Not you, Alice. Look, yeah, we're just sort of darting around talking about this video, which I think misunderstands neoliberalism and the end of neoliberalism in particular ways, and then just chatting about things that are going on. We're not watching this whole video because, again, I've been going for over an hour at this point, and we've watched 6 minutes of the video. So I guess this is how I'm going to do things from now on. Yeah, here we'll carry on. Interrupt to chat, ask questions, talk about what we're... Fucking hell, there's 34 people here. How are there so many people here? What's going on? The video isn't yikes, it's just... Well, actually, there are some parts of the video which are pretty yikes when they start talking about... later on, they start talking about how the right stole anti-globalization from the left, which is a bizarre things to say. Oh no, Lotta, if you're not understanding something or you're not following something, just ask for clarification. Because if you're not understanding, it means I'm doing a bad job of communicating. It's nothing to do with you. The onus is on me to communicate properly. Yeah, any questions or anything you want me to clarify, just say, and I'll do my best. I want to try and make this sort of stuff as accessible as possible, because so many academics talk a lot of inaccessible shite, and I don't want that. Yeah, we've successfully watched 6 minutes of an hour-long video. I knew we wouldn't get very far in this. To be honest, I prefer just hanging out with you guys, seeing what's going on. To be honest, I think I've said all I was going to say about this video. Do you want, let's just call it a quits on the video. Let's go into full screen camera. You'll get a better view and just sit back and chat. Do I think neoliberalism is losing legitimacy? I don't see the questions like this. I don't think neoliberalism ever had. I've not read Medway's piece on the end of which one? It's written quite a few. I've read a couple of them. Yeah, I don't think it particularly had legitimacy in the first place. I mean, it's only thanks Mandy. I can control it from my phone. It's amazing. It's only very recently that people have started self-identifying as neoliberal, in the Trump era, in opposition to Trump, which is itself got its own issues. I don't think it's losing legitimacy in that sort of sense. yeah, we can talk about the neoliberalism and the primitive accumulation bit in a second. I'm going to do a video about that in maybe November. What? Akil Mbembe has been working with Macron in what? Um, I don't think I read the Open Democracy one. I didn't see him post about it. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know what is. I won't say anything about his particular arguments here because I've not read the article. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it had all that much political legitimacy in the first place in terms of like outright support for neoliberalism. Then you sort of have to get, and if there's no outright rhetorical support of it in that sense, you then have to get into which rhetorical or which values remain legitimate in the public sphere and which don't. And I mean, we've got just today or yesterday, Conservative Conference committing to the £20 cut in universal credit, all framed around pulling people up by their bootstraps and getting out of the workplace through jobs and employment. You've got the way in which, and Amelia Horgan was talking about this recently, how while the idea of girl bossing has been sort of ridiculed recently, the underlying logic of it, of feminism being defined within the neoliberal era about personal victories, about succeeding in within the patriarchy in this very individualized sense, is still entirely hegemonic. And then like the particular ideas tied up with Western support of Western modernity and things like that are still fully legitimate. So I don't know if neoliberalism is losing legitimacy. I think maybe there are effects of it which are becoming more intolerable to particular groups, hence the creation of social movements against neoliberal consensus and the growth of social movements like Black Lives Matter and social movement activism on the street against things like the crime and sentencing bill. But I think that was always going to be the case. There's always going to be some degree of generation of social movements against the thing that is like again within the contradictions. You saw it during the pandemic. Individualized responses ran rampant. No real state support for people. So communities often came together, which could in itself, if it worked in a particular way, if those communities coalesced in particular ways, could provide a challenge to that hegemony in particular ways. I don't know if its legitimacy is dead at this point. I'd find that a difficult thing to argue if it was me. Primitive accumulation, yeah. So this is something I'm not quite ready to like fully talk about it because it's something. This is like new. This is my PhD work. So this is like generating. I'm at the point right now of generating this work theoretically and still working it out myself. So it's not all fully formed. It might be a bit confused to some degree. So when we view neoliberal subjectification, the creation of particular forms of individual, the idea of like a entrepreneurial, capitalistic actor, there's been this idea that this is secondary to, say, the material dimensions of neoliberalism, like, how the state interacts with capital. But my idea is essentially that this is a process of primitive accumulation in the same sense as things like the witch hunts, as Federici talks about in Caliban and the Witch, where a process of primitive accumulation which reordered social relations to capital. And there are more obvious ways in which this is the case. So things like the privatization of land, and the way in which, it's very, I'm drawing a lot on, like I was saying, re-enclosure of the commons, exactly. It's very in line, but drawing very much on Federici and Harvey in this sense. And the way that also generates racial divisions. So the privatization of the land allows opportunities for particular accumulation, for business and landlord and entrepreneurial action within these particular areas, but also excludes people who are unable to be part of that. And that exclusion, I think, relates to necropolitics, to the way that necropolitics interacts with this primitive accumulation. And again, I know I'm throwing lots of words out there, I'll explain further as we go on, and it also relates to social reproduction. So take land, for example, and take Gypsy Roma traveller communities. The way that the land is privatised expels them from their way of life, their various ways of life, and forces them in particular relations to capital excluded from the subjectification process because their way of life is oppositional to it. And that excludes them from things like healthcare, and excludes them from things like education, and it excludes them from interacting with the state in that particular way. It excludes them from healthcare and education and their way of reproducing their culture, which are all clear areas of social reproduction, and it severs them from those areas, which I think creates a type of necropolitics, where they're pushed into areas of social death, essentially. So on the one hand, you've got people being forced into the Homo economicus frame, and on the other, you've got people who cannot be forced into the Homo economicus frame. Disabled people, a lot of the time people of colour, I talked about this in the necropolitics video, single mothers, Gypsy Roma traveller communities, and they're all excluded. Thank you, Ollie. And part of neoliberalism has been reshoring up these relations to capital in terms of primitive accumulation. And similar, as we talked about in the neoliberal feminism video, the way in which social relations or social reproductive relations to capital were reordered, are being reinforced under neoliberal capitalism as thank you, Ollie. It's difficult, Mandy, because at this point in discussing something like this, it's like I said, this is theoretical work I'm still working on, so I need to order my thoughts on it as well, and it's difficult to. I think the terminology is a shorthand for me to sort of understand what's going on. I try to get around it as much as possible, and once I've figured things out, I should be able to. Thanks, Ollie. I should be able to explain it kind of clearer. Celti, yes, exactly. I suppose you could say big trend over neoliberalism has been the enclosure of the future commons via financialization. I think that's a salient point. I really enjoy a lot of this thought. I think I've mentioned to you before, but I absolutely think this process of being necropoliticized is currently what's happening to trans people. I think so as well. The exclusion from social reproduction from healthcare, in particular for trans people, very much fits into that frame. I think that's right. Mainly, Mandy. I don't know if I can explain how to properly apologise. We've all got our skills. I'm boring enough that I spend all my time reading about this stuff and writing about it. We've all got our skills. Yeah, someone mentioned earlier on that they were talking about the Owen Jones video. Owen Jones video at the Conservative Party conference. Where was that? I watched the Owen Jones Tory Party conference video. The idea that neoliberalism is losing legitimacy is odd. It was like seeing Reagan speeches from the 80s. Yeah, I think very good point. One thing that they talked about in that video that we were watching, one thing that they talk about it later on, is that they say Boris Johnson is entirely different Conservative from Margaret Thatcher. And I find that a startling thing to say. Oh, I'm not saying your username. Do I? I'm gonna ban you for that username. Oh, how do I remove a person? Yep, I think I just did that. Does anyone want to be a moderator here? I don't know how to do any of this stuff. So, yeah, fuck that. Yeah, so, what was I saying? Oh yeah, the idea that Boris Johnson is entirely different from Thatcher is a I don't know where. Yeah, Ren and Alice, I'll give you give you guys the spanner. Consider yourself deputized. There we go. Yeah, I mean, that's the first time anyone. What? I am okay. Okay. I would like to ban you for okay. What how boring is your life that you go into random streams talking? I mean, we're just what's the title of this stream? Chilling out and chatting. And we're how boring is your life that you've got to come into us talking about primitive accumulation and be a Nazi? Just like, oh my god. What? Man, I think it's just a hate man, just being very boring, not really understand. Ollie, you maybe missed the stuff on primitive accumulation. We were just talking about the ways in which neoliberal subjectification and the neoliberal process can be viewed as primitive accumulation. Alice, you are on it. Absolutely appreciate you. I don't know what the point of someone doing this. Just very boring person. Just a very boring person. So, not to, I won't relitigate it again entirely, Ollie. But essentially, there is a reordering of social relations through neoliberal subjectification. Things like the privatization of land, the way in which neoliberal feminism alters the relationship to capital in a similar way to Federici talks about, and basically that we can view that as a process of primitive accumulation. Fucking hell. this is what a bizarre. Oh, I'm sorry, Ollie. Primitive accumulation. So traditionally, primitive accumulation is the idea of like often viewed of. It should be more accurately called original accumulation. It's the way in which. It's the way in which. Thank you, Mandy. Capital and relationships to capital are altered to essentially generate the means through which capital can accumulate. So that would be through things like stealing land during colonialism for the purposes of accumulation, or things like taking slaves and using slave labor to generate imperial profits and plug back into the the homeland, the metropole, and also people like Federici talk about it being a reordering of social relations to capital to allow for capital accumulation to happen, and essentially I think that's a similar process happening under fucking neoliberalism. Oh yeah, I have no idea what your name is. I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know what to, I don't know what to say reading your name. Yeah, Alice is fucking incredible. I don't know. Yeah, but the creation of private ownership is part of it. Celti. That's a significant part of it. I think, yeah, I mean, I think so. Would you say transatlantic slavery was a form of primitive accumulation? Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that would be a fair assessment of that. Whether that regime, like, some people would talk about that as slavery as like, some traditional Marxists would talk about it as being like a stage anterior to capitalism, something that was an anachronism to capitalism, something that existed at the same time. Alice and Ren are great, yeah. They are both fully fucking cutting this boring person down. Yeah, so transatlantic slavery, some people viewed it as like an anachronism to capitalism, that existed at the same time, but I think it's more accurately viewed as an essential part of capitalism as primitive accumulation. Oh my god. I'm tempted. On the one hand, like, I'm tempted to call it a day with this stream. Like, we were going for a while, but on the other hand, I don't want to let this fucker win. So it's like, what are we thinking, folks? Resist, yeah. Yeah, if it could be a bot. Could stop and start again. Yeah. I'm not going to stop and start again. I mean, this has been a fairly good stream, I think. I mean, welcome everyone to seeing my first. I have been going for a while. How long have I been going? Well, maybe keep going until like. We'll maybe keep going until about 1:45 and see what happens there. Just hang around for a little while. Right, I don't know how to block the users. How do I block a user? fucking, I don't even know how to block. I'll have to figure out how to use this fucking site. This is the first time I've had a what's it called, a spam time. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this again, very boring person. Okay. What's up? Ignore the chat. Mate, I don't know what's going on. Let's just hang around for a few minutes. How's everyone's night going anyway? Man, I thought I'd hidden this person. I have. Everyone's everyone feeling really good, yeah. How good to witness my first spam attack from the fascists. Chill evening, yeah. Oh, nice, Bingo Bungo. What was your assignment on? Vibing right now. I hope you're having a nice lunch, proletariat prince. We do hate work. Thank you, Ollie. I did a bit of procrastination today as well. I had a really good interview for my PhD work today, actually. It was a really, really good interview. Yeah, thank you. Internet achievement. I guess this is nice to the first time proper fucking fascists have jumped on the stream. Well, how's jolly old London town? London's good. I was into university for the first time in 18 months just the other day. Saw an Italian friend of mine. Was gonna see my supervisor, but his whole family has COVID, so that wasn't great. New fat's nice. As you can see, I'm sure this person who's doing this just must be bored, or maybe it's some sort of bot. I don't know. I think the family is okay. Fancy new sheets, Ren. That's right. We're living the dream with these woodland creatures. Creature sheets. Any opinions on the IRA and the conflict in Ireland? My opinion is Irish reunification. Anyway, yeah. So it must be a bot. We're reaching the 1 hour 45 mark. So I think we'll start wrapping up now. Thanks everyone for coming along and listening to me stuck with the hard water. Yeah, definitely stuck with the hard water. What did I grades to get? I get A levels. I didn't do A levels. In Scotland we've got higher. I got an A and 4 Bs, so kind of alright. Not bad. Yeah, thanks particularly to Ren and Alice for dealing with the bot. That 6 minutes of watching a video were great. We really got through that video. The bots are fine. It's a nice little thing to vibe out on. I'm gonna try and start doing these more often, maybe once every 2 weeks, just to sort of sit and chat with folk. I think it's nice, especially now I've got camera. Might try and get some folk on at some point just to chat. Yeah. Maybe watch a PragerU video if I can put the chat through that. yeah, thanks for joining it, and we'll end there. Bye.